Welcome into Boxing Scene Today here at the Pro Box TV studios. So much to talk about in a weekend with three massive cards. Jimmy Smith alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi. Let's do it, guys. You ready? Bow down to the Bobfather. Everybody, bow down to the Bobfather. Why? On a weekend that was supposed to be kind of about everybody else, Ramon Cardenas, Inoue knocked it out of the park on Sunday, and it bounced us back. This was, in a sense, boxing at the plate, 2 strikes, bases loaded. We need to hit this pitch, and they did it on day number 3. But because I have Paulie Malignaggi with me, we got to start out with the negatives, right, Chris? We got to start out with the negatives. That's Paulie.
Pessimistic Paulie.
Pessimistic Paulie. We love it.
Optimistic Algieri, pessimistic Paulie. Is that what we're going with?
And I'm mediating between them. But this idea that the disappointment of a Friday card, a Saturday card. Let's start with Friday in the sense of the New York Times Square card. You said, look, you can only fault the matchmakers so much. On paper, they were supposed to be good. Yeah. Sometimes guys just don't show up. What was your thought about Friday's disappointing fights?
Okay, so I got a couple of things here.
Please.
You know, Friday's disappointing fights. I don't have as much criticism about Friday's disappointing fights because, okay, you weren't looking at a blockbuster card, but you were looking at a pretty good card on paper.
Yes.
You know, it was a fight that it was matchups that you were, curious about. You know, Barboza had been an enigma, undefeated, and when we didn't know how he was going to do with Teo, who always is inconsistent. You know, we didn't know how Haney was going to come back mentally, psychologically from the Garcia fight with the PDs and whatnot, with Garcia, hurting him in that fight. So all that stuff, genuine curiosity, and I thought the matchups made sense. Ryan and Rolly, okay, it's a return fight for Ryan. Actually, that was the one that sort of was on paper probably.
It looked like a can't miss.
A little bit mismatched,
right. Yes.
It looked like a quick, but it looked like it was going to be fun no matter what.
We always talk about there's always an upset on a Riyadh season card. There's always an upset, and that was the upset.
Well, especially when there's plans for the future.
Yeah.
And one more fight. What could possibly go wrong? Right?
And the ironic thing about Friday was the fight that you least expected the upset in is the one you got the upset
yes.
in. And the other ones weren't really that competitive. Barboza did decent, but, wasn't overall competitive. And Ramirez was just, lost, just couldn't catch up to Haney, Yeah. So you look at it and you judge. You like sometimes it's the way the cookie crumbles. I said it. It's like this is the way. So I don't think you could go into that card thinking it was absolutely going to be horrible. Personally, I went into the Canelo fight knowing it was going to be horrible.
Right.
His fights always suck. But these fights, what can I criticize? You know what I mean? It was just like. I was looking forward to Times Square as an anomaly, outdoors. It was something. It was right there. Something did come across my lap over the weekend, though, that I haven't spoken about yet.
What was her name?
No.
I was thinking other stuff. All right, go ahead.
No. So a friend of mine, he has like some exotic cars and whatnot, and they called him up before the Times Square card and said they wanted to use one of his cars. I think it was the big one that Haney ended up coming in.
Okay.
I didn't recognize it. I know my friend has these cars. I didn't know it was him driving it. I didn't know it was him. So, and I'm not making excuses for Ryan Garcia, okay? But these are things that can sort of mess you up. And my friend was home videoing it, so he sent me the videos to my phone, Yeah. Basically, the Batmobile Ryan used, the NYPD, in their over-exuberance at times that they at times tend to show, they decided that this was not a street legal car and it was not going to be allowed to be driven to the ring. So Ryan was delayed for his ring walk about 20 minutes or something inside the lobby of the hotel. And he wasn't going to jump in the Batmobile. He was waiting, and he had to, and there's a crowd there and everything, and he's just sitting there waiting, and he's got to warm up. You got to keep your head in the game, obviously.
Right, yeah.
And you're a pro, his own excuses, but these things can tend to, when it's unforeseen events as you walk into the ring, sometimes things happen, right? He gets out. They were going to put him in my friend's car, which was the one Haney used. Yeah. But then they figured out, okay, we're going to put him in the Batmobile. But the NYPD said, no, you're not turning that car on. That car can't be turned on. They tried to turn it on. It was like super gas, like it would, super gas smell,
Yeah.
Like, so in the end, they had to push the car to the ring. I don't know if you guys they ended up pushing the Batmobile, and then Ryan gets out of it and gets there. By the time this all happens, there's delays. There's psychologically maybe you're taken out of your element. Again, as a pro, you're supposed to understand that you got to focus and everything else. But after you've been out for 15 months, you come back and this all happens. By the time you get to the ring, you're like, what the hell just happened? What the hell's going on? And I'm no Ryan Garcia apologist here, guys. You know me already. I don't. But I do realize that sometimes on the way to the ring, you can get lost. I've said this before on other shows. You can mentally get lost on your way to the ring.
You can check
times,
out,
you know?
for sure.
Like there were times in my career, I can remember when I fought in Etihad in Manchester City Stadium, the ring walk was so long and everything was so much fun that I got into the ring and I see my opponent across the ring and I'm like, dude, I got to fight. What am I doing? You know what I mean? Like I was just partying. I was partying my way all the way to the ring. You know, I totally forgot that I had to fight. You know, I was just taking in the atmosphere. So in that respect, I can see how a young fighter could, you know, even though it's your responsibility because you're there to play it right, could lose himself. And Rolly, well, nobody's giving Rolly fanfare because Rolly came in with the least fanfare, right? Because the momentum was in total regression for Rolly. But he had a chip on his shoulder and he was ready to fight. So when you got a guy who's ready to fight and has that chip on his shoulder and a guy who possibly could have been distracted, you may get that because then Ryan never got into the fight.
You got both guys, though. Started. Both guys afterwards said things about what you're just talking about. Like Ryan said, I don't know what it was, if it was the, you know, the atmosphere or whatever. He said he didn't feel right. And that new additional information, that definitely helps. But Rolly's also said, like, he said I didn't have a hotel room. He said there was a bunch of other things that his gloves were an issue. But guess what? He put that all on the back burner and went to work. Like he fought the most disciplined fight I've ever seen.
There's no expectation. Sometimes it's better. You know?
Sometimes, if you're that guy. Yeah, apparently, Rolly's is that guy because I've never seen him fight so disciplined. He actually looked good. He fought well. He fought smart. It was, you know, I didn't think he was going to be able to do that, especially with all that hoopla like we're talking about. But listen, I was impressed with him.
And Rolly is a former light welterweight champion, right? He won the title against Barroso, right? So one-time world champion. Ryan's only chance to win against a world champion, right?
So Ryan's never beat a world champion, no.
Never beaten a world champion. So even reigning or past,
right?
You know, so he was expected to do it here, and that doesn't come together. So Ryan has to reassess a lot of things here.
So we can agree that on paper, and by the way, we're not Monday morning quarterbacking here. What I mean is on Wednesday and Thursday.
I mean, you have to Monday morning quarterback. That's what Monday and Tuesdays are for.
Right, but what we don't do is we weren't complaining Wednesday and Thursday about the card. We weren't going, oh, this card sucks. Like,
no,
to your point, we weren't. So this idea that we weren't seeing this necessarily ahead of time. Scull versus Canelo. We were saying it ahead of time. We were talking about the style matchup not being entertaining, perhaps not being good. Did you see the clapback? I guess it was Sunday from De La Hoya talking about you can't say your opponent has a bad style. When you pick the opponent, you knew he was a runner. You know about the Cuban hit and run kind of style. You picked the guy. It's your responsibility. What's your thought about that criticism after a terrible fight Saturday from Canelo?
Well, I mean, I watched Scull. Apparently, it's pronounced Scull. We've been saying Scull for the past 2 months. But sorry about that. But so listen, it doesn't take much to see that fight was not going to be good. I watched him earlier in the week, and I watched the Shishkin fight. And Shishkin, I actually think is a good fighter, and the fight was super close. But he's a bit of a stinker. And do you think he's going to turn into a stalker puncher, boxer puncher when he fights Canelo on the biggest stage? Of course not. But so to that point that Oscar says, like, yeah, dude, you got to go off the ring. How much experience do you have? You know this guy's going to be like that. You can't afterwards just go, I don't like guys who fight like that. Ruslan Provodnikov said that to me about Mayo. He was like, I don't like fighters who move like that. I'm like, well, it's boxing, guys. You got to figure out, cut off the ring. You know, we're the
especially if you're a stalker. If you're a stalker, kind of a
but fighter, you were landing punches,
right? Yeah, Scull was not. Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah,
but
you won that fight.
My point is just that the fact that Ruslan made that mistake, made that excuse,
right?
And we're kind of hearing that from the Canelo fans as well, or the Canelo side. But yeah, that fight just left so much to be desired. It was just the pace, the amount of punches. What didn't it set records for the least amount of punches thrown?
Ramon Cardenas in a few rounds, I think, threw more punches than them put together, right?
We will get to that. Yes, 100%. Early on too, like the third round or something.
Mm-hmm. But even the rest of that card wasn't that entertaining either. I was looking forward to that card. I was saying that this is actually a good card. There's fights I want to see. Badu Jack. I mean, I'm a fan of Badu Jack. I like the way he fights. That fight wasn't really great. I like Munguia. Munguia is almost never in a bad fight. He was in a bad fight this time. Mm-hmm. Suras, I think, is better than
early on. He was okay, but then
but the fight just kind of just and that fight turned out to be a bit of a dud too. That was the best fight on the card. Mm-hmm. But Bacoli and Ajagba was actually a good fight. I can't believe it went the distance. I think the draw was a good ending because Ajagba was able to land some huge right hands early on. Bacoli, for a guy who got knocked out with one punch from Joe Park, who can't take a shot, fought a guy who could really punch and got hit a lot and showed that his chin is for real. When he's in shape, he's a different animal. I'd love to see that one run back, though, because that was a good fight.
But don't give me this face of boxing stuff when the entertainment value for a crossover star wasn't there. If you want to be crossover, want to be the face of boxing, Paulie, the criticism is that has to translate to fans who aren't boxing heads like us, who might appreciate a technique battle. You got to appeal to the masses. This fight did the exact opposite of that.
As far as Ryan, or it's kind of
no. As far as the Canelo fight, he's the face of boxing. The face of boxing.
Well, like I said, the reason we don't have new faces of boxing is because boxing has gotten into this whole scheme where the new up and comers don't deserve a chance at the stars. Like the stars will just fight each other, and they'll create like a separate world here. And then until they retire, then you give the new up and comers a chance. And by that point, the stars are gone, and now the new up and comers don't have enough notoriety, and they've got to sort of build it from scratch. While in the old days, actually all the days except now, boxing always sort of had a situation where the old star was finally overtaken by the new star. Sanctioning bodies enforced title fights, so the new star would come in and become the mandatory, or enforce the fight against the old star, eliminate him, and then sort of become the new star.
And you get the passing of the torch.
And the cycle had the passing of the torch. These mutts now, and mutts I mean the fighters, the organizations, the sanctioning bodies, the promoters, everything else. These mutts have literally destroyed the system. So now we have a system where they just do whatever they want. They steal money they are short-term happy and long-term poor, because what you're doing long-term, you're destroying this. And you're creating a situation where these circus events have to come into boxing in order to make the kind of money the super fights used to make. You remember how exciting it was when super fights would get signed on pay-per-view, when you were like, man, I cannot wait for this fight. Like, pay-per-views weren't every fight, but when a pay-per-view was signed, when two guys had really built themselves up on HBO or on Showtime and won and looked good and won and looked good, or even on pay-per-views against solid opponents, and then you knew they were going to go up against each other, even if it didn't live up to it. I can remember the build-up for De La Hoya Trinidad, which the fight ended up sucking, but the build-up,
huge.
The year before, where De La Hoya beat Iquarte, and he'd beaten, a slew of good fighters, and they weren't Trinidad. So you were, even back then, you were like, oh, when's he going to fight Trinidad? Little did we know how good we had it with these mutts fighting cab drivers and Uber drivers and waiters.
De La Hoya says it all the time. He's like, I fought everybody.
But listen, everybody picks the moment, okay? Like, so, De La Hoya got Whitaker, then he didn't give him a rematch, but he gave Chavez a rematch. There's criticisms there too. But what I'm saying is, even in those complaints you may have there, it was still 50 times better than now. Now, they don't even do that, bro. Now they'll find the guy who's delivering the FedEx package outside, who's going to deliver one of these posters later, and they'll throw him in the ring in a super fight, and then call it a super fight. This guy's clown groupie fans are on my page telling me he was a mandatory, he was the IBF champion. Buddy, he was the IBF champion because the IBF was the only ones that stripped him. Benavidez was the mandatory for 3 years, and he didn't fight him. And none of you every single one of you are defending this crap, okay? And I told you back then, that was the fight to make. The two guys that would have rid us of this entire problem had to move up in weight. Morrell and Benavidez both would have cleaned the floor with this guy. They would have used him as the ring mat to mop the blood off the floor from the previous undercard fights, and they would have got rid of him already. And we wouldn't have to deal with this crap. And then those guys would have beaten him, one of those guys, and remained hungry to make big fights. So we would have a continuation of big fights as the torch was passed. Instead, we've gotten this for the past bunch of years. Guys that he picks that show up are just happy to be here, and then we call them the face of boxing. And these clowns are sitting here defending it. That's it. That's my rant today.
Which I absolutely love the rant. We absolutely needed it. But this idea that if you're gonna,
it makes the cut.
Right. If you're gonna pick the cherry, make sure the cherry's good. Right. You can't say I picked this cherry, but this cherry ran and the cherry did this. You pick the cherry.
But I'm gonna bring up a potential silver lining here. How many people are gonna change their picks for September's fight now?
A lot.
How many people are gonna look at that and go, no, this Crawford-Canelo fight's actually a real fight now? Like, I think Crawford's going to win.
The fight sucks. What do you mean the fight? The fight sucks.
Stop. Hold on.
Go ahead.
This is what I'm saying. How many people now are going to think this is a good fight?
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I cut you off, dude.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's what I'm saying.
You know,
People now are going to be excited.
who wants to watch this guy?
Listen, I didn't like the Crawford Canelo fight. I understood the magnitude of it. There's weight classes for a reason. I didn't like how the thing matched up, and I think a lot of people felt like that. And we're just kind of like it was kind of just jammed down our throat. But now, I mean, I was talking to a bunch of people on Saturday night right after the fights, and we were talking about it. People are like, "Yo, if that guy shows up, Crawford's going to beat him." And there've been people who've been saying, like Tim Bradley, for example, has been saying Crawford's going to beat the shit out of Canelo from as soon as he was signed. And I mean, there wasn't a lot of those people saying that. There's a lot more now. And I think the build up to this fight is going to be heightened. It's going to be better. It's that's the only silver lining I could get from that boring ass fight. But at least people now are going to be like, oh, okay, all right, this Crawford Canelo match, I kind of want to see it.
And I want to stipulate here. This is lose-lose for Canelo, okay? Because, yes, I picked him to win against Crawford, thinking Crawford's too small. He sucked so bad on Saturday that now I think Crawford beats him.
He looks slow.
But if he beats Crawford, who cares? It was what he was supposed to do anyway against the guy 4 or 5 weight classes lower. Who cares? The whole premise of the entire event is BS when you've been skipping out on the best contenders getting title shots. You want to do this crap, don't do it for the title. That's it. You know, these titles should have been stripped, dispersed among the super middleweights, who then would have been competing in unifications against one another for top level. You know, you would be able to build the star of your Edgar Belangas, your Pacheco's, and what other Super Mbilis, whatever. You know, you could build the rivalry much better if they went and grabbed these titles instead of letting this guy cherry pick them.
All right, so Paulie, you're so necessary. Positive Chris Inoue versus Ramon Cardenas.
I'm positive about that too.
Okay, all right, your time's done.
Thanks.
I'll let you know when you need negativity.
You
stay in your bubble. Stay on your side. Stay on your side.
Right.
All right, okay. So anyway, but you were ringside for that fight. We were all hoping Sunday would bring us something. Ramon Cardenas. The secret's out. We know him on Pro Box TV. We call these fights. We know how good he was. We know how hungry he was. We know how Mexican he fights. That was all on display Sunday against arguably the most dangerous fighter of the whole weekend. The guy showed what, Paulie? Balls. Was that the case to you?
So I'm going to start even before Sunday because I was there all week for the fight week events. And Ramon Cardenas, he looked like he belonged. And actually, in Inoue, we asked him in the fighter meeting. So I actually was in the fighter meetings with Inoue this time. We got to actually speak with him and see how he is aside from being in the ring. And we'd asked him, what do you see in your opponent? What did you see at the weigh-in? He's like, he seems very calm, and that's the number one thing that Cardenas brought with him all fight week: poise, calm,
confidence,
understanding that he belonged there. And listen. Honestly, I knew he belonged there. I've been telling everybody, I'm like, this is a real fight. And people were asking me, like, what can he do? And Christina Poncher actually asked me right before we went on air. She's like, Ramon, you've called his last 3 fights. You speak to him. What can he do to be successful here? I'm like, well, he's a fantastic counterpuncher. He can hit and he can punch with both hands. And we saw that. And with the fact that he was so poised and calm and confident, like you said, champ, he wasn't worried about getting hit. He got hit with a lot of shots early on. It did not phase him one bit. He said, no, I belong here. This guy hits hard. He wasn't worried about the power, this like crazy power from Inoue, and he even talked about that after the fight. But the way that he carried himself all week, the way that Joel Diaz carried himself. Joel Diaz is like, I know I got the guy who's got the goods. And he was confident. He was telling everyone in the fighting meeting, he's not getting a way out. He's like, we're not getting him out. We came here to win this fight. He's like, we're going to shock the world. People don't know what I know about Ramon. He's like, he told the whole story about how he came to his gym. He drove from San Antonio to come to Joel Diaz. And Joel, being Joel, he put him in the ring that day against Odebek. Odebek can fight. Odebek can really fight. Odebek was in shape. And, Ramon arrives. And basically Joel's like, I don't have time for guys who could just come. My friend told me to check this guy out. I'm like, all right, well, let's throw him in the fire. Let's see what's up. Puts him in there, said he sparred 6 rounds of Odebek. And he was like, damn, this kid's good. And then he said he got him on the pads. And the way he was hitting the pads, he goes, this guy's got world-class power. He's like, oh yeah, we can do a lot with this. And he was talking about that all fight week and all the fighting meetings. Joel Diaz's belief in Ramon is something special. And in that second round, right, dropped him in the second round.
Dropped him in the second.
Right before that, literally his last words, Joel is talking. I'm in the corner. I'm in the Cardenas corner with Joel Diaz. And I can literally see him, his mouth moving. I can hear him. And he goes, Ramon, that was a good round. He's like, when he throws that right hand, let that left hook fucking go. I don't care if it's to the head. I don't care if it's to the body, but throw that motherfucker hard. And then the next round, what happens? Inoue's on the mat, on his knees, looking at like, what the hell just hit me? Because, and listen, that little combination was beautiful. Inoue got a little over his skis. Ramon stayed tight, dips his head, bing, big left hook, and that was a real knockdown. That was not a flash knockdown.
How similar is it to the Neary knockdown?
Yes.
In that the angle he found,
Yep.
It's in that it's a left hook. Usually a left hook lands on the side of the face, right? You throw.
Yeah,
it's the angle that you find.
When you step around.
Yeah, you step around. It's that same step around where the left hook hits you flat on your face.
Yes, those suck. Getting it like that sucks.
But like, it's the same exact left hook that dropped them both times. It's the left
Eerily
hook,
similar.
It's the left hook flat on the face, and not the left hook on the side or on the chin that got him.
And then similar to the Neary fight, I think Cardenas was way more dangerous than Neary because Neary
More versatile.
He fell apart right after that knockdown. Cardenas was still in there, and he was still trying to land that left hook, but Inoue's ability to find that range and timing and just make that left hook miss over and over again, just make it miss over.
He started using the jab too.
He did that in the Neary fight too, but that really shut Neary off. It didn't shut Ramon off. Ramon was still looking for those counter opportunities, but his ability to get back on those jabs, get back on his fundamentals, tighten up his defense, keep his hands tighter, but also putting himself out there to get hit. He's ridiculous how good he is.
I wish Ramon would have stuck with his own jab.
Yeah,
He started just tightening up, looking for one big shot. And I started to think, as I'm watching the fight, maybe Ramon doesn't feel like he can get a decision anyway. So what he's trying to do is throw less, hold his energy, and then save it for one big shot.
Because he did throw everything hard. Yeah.
So he started throwing less, but anything he threw a big shot. Or it could be that he was trying to land the same shot that he dropped him with. It sometimes happens, and then you just get caught doing the same thing. I don't know. I guess we'd have to ask him. But
in the corner, Joel was telling him, you got to get back on the jab. And also, he said he didn't want the earmuffs. He wanted him to get more of a shell style and use the jab out of there. But honestly, I don't think he could get past Inoue's jab. Inoue's jab is a piston and hard.
I think it was you that made a good point during the fight where it was there's catch and shoot opportunities, but it's harder to catch and shoot
when
against
you got a guy
who hits
hands
that hard.
Yes,
and there was a couple of times in the fight where I saw Cardenas try to catch and shoot, but it wasn't automatic. Like a good catch and shoot is like a button. They touch you and you go like a button. Cardenas' catch and shoot was. He made sure he caught it first. Yeah. There's a little hesitancy.
You have to make sure,
And make sure nothing else is coming back, and then let me shoot it. So that little hesitancy, if you notice, had him missing the catch and shoots. Like he kept trying to catch and shoot the hook or catch and shoot right.
There were times
when he kept missing it.
When I fought Pacquiao, and he's got heavy hands and they're super fast, obviously, but like he would throw his left hand, and that left hand, that thing is brutal, and it would hit my wrist and just bend my hand back. So my ability to catch it and then shoot it was like boom, and now it's like I got to go back out and then throw it. Yeah, it was always too short and too slow.
It takes away the technicality of
that
the
rebound
shot.
goes away.
The all-time greats, we don't remember necessarily their wipeout performances. Where if I told you Muhammad Ali, Cleveland Williams is the best he ever looked in his whole career, most people go, what's that? You remember when they overcame adversity. You remember Sonny Liston. You remember George Foreman. You remember Ali Frazier, the third one. Anytime the great ones overcome adversity, they grow in our eyes. This is one of those few fights, Paulie, let me know if you disagree, elevated both guys, which is hard to do, but Naoya Inoue showed greatness in his ability to adjust despite a great performance by Ramon Cardenas. Does it make him bigger to us?
Yeah, I think it does in that entertainment value matters to a lot of people, right? And I think entertainment value was cemented there by Naoya Inoue here in this fight. You got to keep in mind, because some people are going to say, oh, he got dropped by an unknown fighter, and what kind of guy in the pound for pound is he?
Damn good fighter.
Well, Ramon Cardenas is going to be known pretty soon, and now he's known. This was not just a guy who just showed up. This is what I mean about this is why. When you people give this kind of criticism, this is why stars don't fight the next up-and-coming guy, and why you create this divide, and then you cut your own noses off to spite your face, okay? So this, what Naoya Inoue did over the weekend is what all stars are supposed to do. They're supposed to give the next up-and-coming guy a chance to settle into the upper echelons of the sport because he belongs there as well. And then you try to get their shot. They may win, they may lose. But now Cardenas, what's going to happen is he's going to end up lingering in this world-class level. He's going to get other shots.
Well, he's in the room. He didn't win a title, but he's in the room.
He's probably going to end up winning a world championship because you can see there's a world-class style, world-class mentality, world-class skills, world-class boxer in Ramon Cardenas. So this when you give me the criticism for Inoue, like, oh, he got dropped by this unknown guy, again, you deserve to pay for those Canelo waste of time pay-per-views because this is all you're going to get. If you don't give the next up-and-coming guys chances, the world-class guys chances to ply their trade and win or make their name, you're going to have a big divide constantly with the known guys and the unknown guys. And in the unknown guys, there's guys that can fight, but you're never going to know who they are. So you can't have this classism in boxing. It's a meritocracy where the best fighters are supposed to get the best shots. Cardenas, in the smaller weight classes, is a legitimate guy. And that's what he proved this weekend. And Inoue proved that as well. And it was his fourth weight class here? How many weight classes has he been up? You're going to feel the shots when you get hit from them. Inoue's always had defensive liabilities. It's going to make him fun. It may prevent him from being the best pound-for-pound guy in the sport. But let me tell you something. The other two guys on that top 3 pound-for-pound are dinosaurs. They're on their way out regardless, okay? So who is going to replace Crawford and Usyk when they're gone? Because they're gone soon, regardless of whether they keep winning or losing, whatever. At a certain point, they're going to be gone. So whether you like it or not, Inoue is going to be the number 1 pound-for-pound guy in the sport because you guys didn't allow it to create a new star. You didn't allow it to happen. You didn't allow it to happen because you supported this crap. You keep buying this crap. So now you eat what you get. So I don't want to hear the complaints about Inoue got dropped by an unknown guy. No, Inoue is a top bona fide star, and he is an exciting guy. And he's a guy who can carry the torch. And honestly, he can get beat at any point, honestly, the way he gets hit.
Fights Mexican.
You make him with Nakatani, Nakatani may put him out. Who knows, bro?
He's got MJ first. MJ is a
Ahmadalia, right?
Ahmadalia. That's a really tough fight.
And even Nick Ball. He's a 126-pounder, right?
Yeah.
He's a physically strong on a 26-pounder.
Inoue, he's a superstar. And the way that, media trained guys he's been interviewed his entire life. He said his 4th weight class, he's, undisputed. He's a megastar where he's from. So he gets interviewed a lot. So he's very media trained. He's very savvy with the way he deals with questions. We got 2 nuggets of information that I thought were really important out of him. Featherweight will be the last weight class he fights in. He's not going to go above featherweight. He's not going to go to 130, and he's not going to fight past 35. So the time that we have left with him, he's 33 now. We got 2 years. How many fights are we talking about? I know he sets a torrid pace with his schedule. He fights like 3 or 4 times a year, which is more than anyone at his level does. So we don't have that much time left with him. He's looking for the biggest fights possible. They're talking about MJ Akhmadaliev in September. He mentioned by name Nakatani at 122. So he still has work to do at 22. But then he wants to unify 126. He said that. My goal is to unify 126. That is a hell of a weight class right now. Yeah. Those champions, they're all scattered. They're not unified at all. He's going to have to go collect heads.
Especially that he's having chin issues already at 22, 26.
He looks human at 22.
Yeah. And think about a guy that small getting hit with those Espinosa body shots,
those uppercuts.
Things like that. They start
Nick Ball with the left hooks.
Yeah. But I like that that spice of he's been hit.
Like all the smoke.
He wants all the smoke, and it's dangerous. And as a fan, it's exciting. I got a question for you, Chris. Do you remember Eric Harding?
Of course.
Right. When I asked Antonio Tarver, who's the toughest fighter of your career? This guy fought Roy Jones Jr.
Yep.
Glad Johnson, the Road Warrior. He fought B-Hop. He goes, Eric Harding.
Yeah, he told me too.
We're all friends.
Gives Eric a lot of respect.
Right. And
Eric was in Philadelphia at our show.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah. Yep. Not the biggest name. Not the guy not the biggest guy he fought. He goes, that dude was a tough mother effer.
And if you were in the business, you knew Eric Harding.
Right. It's one of those things when people go, oh, who's Ramon Cardenas? Ask the pros sometimes who their toughest fight was, and it won't be the name you thought. It's like, this guy was a club fighter,
But also Jimmy Cardenas is still young, and he has an opportunity that we're going to be like, he didn't just shine on that moment. He kicked in the door.
He's that good.
He is. Yeah. So we might look back at this win. Say we fast forward a year, and Inoue's back up at 26 now, and he's fighting all those champions. Who's to say Ramon is not a world champion at 122 now? Who's to say he's not beating these guys? Who's to say he's not unifying the championship? We might look back at this and be like, that Ramon Cardenas win was really good. This guy's now a world champion at 122. Yeah. I think this is his entrance, not his peak.
Not his peak.
Yes. I would be very shocked if Ramon Cardenas doesn't become a world champion.
I told him before the San Antonio show.
I would be very, very shocked. Stranger things have happened. There's been very good fighters who don't become world champions, but I think Ramon Cardenas, will only get better from this experience and continue to grow.
I felt like I've been now here with Pro Box TV calling fights next to you guys for 3 years now. I remember the first time I saw Angelo Leo on our air, and I was like, oh no, this is a different level of fighter than we're used to having here. This guy's world class. Sure enough, 2 fights later, he's a world champion. Ramon was the second time where I felt that. I saw him out there, and I'm like, nah. There's this intangible thing that certain guys walk around with and they fight with. And before the San Antonio show, when he got dropped by Brian Acosta, actually, I was talking to him, and I go, hey man, you're right there. You're going to be a world champion one day, and I have not changed that thought at all with this loss. Ramon has 2 losses now, but I don't care.
And he's just got to stay hungry. He's got to stay with the same motivation. And judging by his character,
he's a humble guy. Yeah.
Because when people tell you at a certain point in champ, I'm sure people started telling you. I started hearing it. People started telling you, you're definitely going to be world champion. You're going to be world champion. It doesn't mean it happens unless you make it happen. Those compliments don't come in the ring with you. Your opponents don't care about those things. So as long as Cardenas remains with the same mindset he's always had, the same hunger, determination, focus, drive that he's always had, it's hard for me to not see him becoming a world champion. But he has to keep those qualities.
You're gonna love this. Something that he made a point all fight week when he was being interviewed. He's like, man, he's like, Instagram numbers, likes. That's not what I'm here for. He's like, that doesn't make you a good fighter. I'm here to be a world champion. So he consistently staying humble and being humble.
Eyes on the prize.
Eyes on the prize, staying focused. You know, he's the kid from Texas, man.
Yep.
He can fight his ass off, and he wants to be a world champion.
And speaking of pro box fighters, we got Cardenas, and also you mentioned the Angelo Leo. In Inoue's path at 126 could be Angelo Leo as well, who is IBF world champion at 126?
He is it the IBF?
Yeah, I think he's a world champion in the
No. It is IBF. Yeah, because I saw him the other day, and so he had the red belt. Yeah,
IBF 126-pound title. So it could be somebody who winds up in the path of Inoue, especially that he's fighting Kameda in Japan on the 4th. So Leo is going to get his notoriety in Japan right now if he's able to defend the title against Kameda. Tough fight, but if he's able to defend that title against Kameda, that could be a fight against a Western fighter that is known in Japan already by having that. And if Kameda beats Leo, you potentially have Inoue versus Kameda, and also Inoue Nakatani. Also, these old Japanese rivalries start to really create themselves.
Don't sleep on Angelo Leo. He's got a big left hook too.
No, I'm not
left hook is the shot.
I'm not sleeping. I'm just saying.
Inoue apparently has is kryptonite.
I'm just saying, he's still got it.
He's still got it.
Kameda still got it too, though.
He's still got it. And we still got it here at Pro Box TV. Remember, this is where you saw the up-and-comers first. Same thing, May 10th. Join us then. But this has been Boxing Scene Today. After a huge weekend Sunday, out of the park to the Bob Father. That's right. Top Rank put together a great card on Sunday. We appreciate you. Tune in here and find out why millions are watching. We'll see you next time.